Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Job Talk radio show. I am your host, Dr. Tina. Of course, before we begin, I always want to share with my audience who I am and why I do what I do. First and foremost, I am an executive coach. I am also the creator of the Job Talk radio show. I became a coach as I began to become aware of the joy, pain, and turmoil we each experience in our work life, and I studied to understand how to create harmony, peace, and joy in the hours, days, and weeks we spend on the job. In life, we cannot always choose what we do, but we can always choose who we are. And just because we choose to trade our time for money does not mean we should be miserable in our work life. As human beings, we each aspire to a life of autonomy, mastery, and a sense of purpose. To that end, the job show is targeted at listeners wanting more encouragement, respect, and inspiration in your work life. So every time you listen to the show, I hope you take away a nugget of wisdom about making your work life more joyous, fulfilling, and profitable. Today, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Clara Wajngurt. And our topic today is bullying in higher education. Welcome, Clara, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me be on the show.
It's absolutely my pleasure to be able to host you here today. So Dr. Clara Wajngurt has written and lectured widely on the topic of bullying in higher education. She has been a reviewer for both the Anthology of Bullying and also Bullying in the Bullying in Academia, edited by Dr. Lee Hollis. Recently, Clara has lobbied on behalf of the Workplace Bullying Bill in Albany, New York, and is currently spearheading a process at her college on anti-bullying. To know that we're in the presence of greatness is always a wonderful thing on the Job Talk radio show because many, many people have mastered their professional journey. Clara's includes a PhD in mathematics in algebraic number theory, which she accomplished in 1983. She has an MA in mathematics from Belfer Graduate School in New York in 1977 and a BS in mathematics and psychology. From 1983 to present, Clara has worked at the Queensborough Community College in New York and has been a faculty mentor for junior faculty members of the Mathematics and Computer Science Department. She is so well written. I'm just going to list a few of the publications that she is responsible for. The Changing Faces of Higher Education, Enrollment and Financing Revisited, the effects of positive outlook on biological health and how they both impact our school programs, bullying in higher education and its impact on the Healthy Workplace Bill, prevention of bullying on our campus, and the enhancement of institutional effectiveness through sound institutional assessment and strategic planning. And so, welcome, Dr. Clara Wajngurt. I am going to say, however, I know that your bio here today is a modest rendition of your accomplishments. Is there more you would like to share with our audience?
Yes, I would. I'd like to concentrate more on my credentials that deal with bullying. Yes, I've heard that you mentioned the article that I just published in the Academe Journal in June 2014, Prevention of Bullying on Campus. I'd like to just make an exact title that I was a peer reviewer for two books that were written by Dr. Leah Hollis. One book was Bully Beyond the Tower, a collection of peer-reviewed essays on workplace bullying. And another one was Bullying in the Ivory Tower. That was two books. I'd like to also mention two other things that I have been interviewed before by the University Business Magazine in February 2013. regarding bullying at work on campus. I'm working for the union, and in addition to my faculty role. So I get to hear about grievance, complaints, issues that affect faculty and other staff members. My interview by University Business Magazine on bullying at work on campus was relevant. And in May 2013, I was also part of a panel discussion on a radio internet show. It was the SSFI Internet Radio, hosted by Mr. Brett Scudder, where we discussed the human and mental impacts on workplace abuse and bullying. And my last thing I'd like to mention about my credentials on and research regarding bullying is that I do have a blog, and the blog is under Not in Our Town, and it's called Anti-Bullying Policies in Higher Education. The blog is supervised by Becky Cohen-Vargas, who is known to work with bullying issues in the elementary and high school arena. So I just wanted to add that on to the credentials that we just heard.
So 2 comments. Wow. I knew I had hit pay dirt when Clara agreed to be interviewed on our show today. You've just affirmed that for me, Clara. You have certainly a breadth and depth of recent experience and exposure to the topic of bullying, particularly bullying in higher education. And for our listening audience, every interview that I conduct on the Job Talk radio show, the interviewee's name and show topic is listed on my website at thejobtalkradioshow.com, and I will hotlink Clara's name to all of her relevant contact information if you want to reach out and contact her later after the show or her particular publications. Okay, so Clara, you have been very gracious to join us here on the show today. And I'm going to start with a very, very straightforward question to help frame the discussion going forward. What is bullying?
Yes. Before I even attend to what is bullying, because that is the crux of everything that we're talking about here, I'd like to also tell you how I got into this. I've been at my college at CUNY for 31 years. I've pretty much have seen the environment at CUNY, and it's a wonderful school with a lot of potential. But unfortunately, there have been many cases of bullying, some more pronounced than others over the years that I've witnessed. And there is a question here about being a bystander and what to do. And in many cases, while I was going for promotion, for tenure and promotion, I was not able to respond appropriately. We can get into that as to why. There is a paralysis of freedom of expression at the university in the publish or perish type of mode. And subsequently, after you feel you've accomplished per the university environment, you're able to speak out with more confidence and try to make changes in the system. And the issue of bullying has been on my mind for quite a while. I've seen so much of it on the campus, and I've heard so much of it across the United States that I think it's well worth talking about. And to start off, I think what we need to do is define bullying. How do you recognize it? And it's a repeated verbal, physical, social, or psychologically aggressive behavior by a person or a group of persons that is generally directed towards a less powerful person or group, and they are intending at least the group of people who wants to inflict the bullying intends to cause harm, distress, or fear. It's an intimidation tactic. One is forcing someone or a group of people to do what the bully wants.
So, Clara, hold the thought on harm, distress, or fear, because I do need to go for a quick station break, and I shall be right back in a moment to continue this very important conversation.
Okay.
Welcome back, everybody, and you are listening to the Job Talk radio show. Of course, I'm your host, Dr. Tina, and today I'm interviewing Clara Wajngurt on the subject of bullying in higher education. Just before the break, when asked about what bullying was, Clara said it gave a very clear example or indication of what bullying was, and that it was a repeated behavior with the intent to cause harm, distress, or fear. So knowing what it is, Clara, and knowing what the anticipated outcome is, why does a bully bully? Why does bullying occur?
So before we talk about how it occurs, I'd like people to know when it occurs. Given the definition, it could be verbal bullying. It could come through teasing, name-calling, threatening to cause harm. It could be manifesting through social bullying, spreading rumors, leaving someone out of a project, or maybe even with a group of students who want to work on some project. So leaving someone out, embarrassing someone in public. It could even go to physical bullying, hitting, kicking, spitting, pushing. So that's how I'd like people to think about bullying and to be aware of how it manifests itself. So the next question is, why do people bully? Why do we need to do this? This is really what we just asked. And I've looked into it. The bully himself or herself needs to feel powerful, in control. There's a need for attention, a need to feel superior. There's no empathy. The person who bullies will say, I do no wrong. Maybe the person is quick to anger or aggression. Maybe the person enjoys inflicting pain or suffering. And then there's the other side of the coin. Why does a person allow himself or herself to be bullied? Maybe the person gets frustrated easily, can't conform to rules. Maybe the person feels disconnected, maybe from the school or from the job. Maybe the person has high levels of emotionality, and the bully takes advantage of that. Low self-esteem, non-assertive, being unpopular, feeling different in some way or powerless. And the bully can scapegoat and take advantage of the situation.
It's a very comprehensive answer to why does bullying occur and what are the characteristics of bullying. So then, Clara, in your experience and in your research and in your writings, what are the understood effects of bullying?
I'm sorry, what are the understood?
Effects of bullying.
Oh, okay, sorry. A person who is bullied, let's look at that point of view, can exhibit anxiety. If your boss is attacking you, if your boss is screaming at you, let's go back to some of the characteristics. If your boss wants to feel powerful, or if maybe it's a group of students who just want to take advantage and scapegoat. The one who's bullied can feel panic attacks, can get depressed. There's a feeling of shame. What am I doing wrong? Guilt. Perhaps I should have done something else. And sometimes all the depression and anxiety can lead to changes in sleep and eating patterns, can lead to a loss of interest in activities. They don't want to feel involved anymore. If the student is in school or it's on a job, there's decreased academic achievement, health complaints. So the effects of bullying manifest themselves in many ways on the person who is being bullied.
Yes, I'm beyond saying wow, just yes. Of course, any deviant behavior does have a deep psychological and physical impact on the person that's being bullied.
Yes.
So then, I touched upon the continuum of deviant behavior that people can exercise against another human being. How does bullying differ from harassment?
So before I answer that direct question, which I'm prepared to do, I just want my audience to understand. I'll give situations, actual situations in the work environment where bullying arises, and then I can respond how it differs from other forms of aggression, harassment, and other things. Over the years, I have been privy to seeing these things happen. Faculties in higher professorial ranks, just to educate my audience, the professorial rank goes from lecturer generally, from instructor, lecturer, assistant professor, associate professor, full professor. And one avenue is for a full professor, someone, as we said, someone of more power, making insulting comments about an untenured faculty member on a lower rank, perhaps saying you don't know something or you're not capable of doing something. Okay, that's a power struggle here. Or maybe it's a faculty member versus a chair. Again, notice again, in the situations I bring up, there's someone, so to speak, who wants to feel like they're in control and superior over somebody else. So perhaps the department chair won't identify a means of improvement, doesn't acknowledge a faculty member's contribution to the department. That, to me, that's a form of bullying. When it is the responsibility of a chair or for a chair to educate one's faculty about what process needs to be followed to move up the ladder. Or maybe it doesn't have to be with faculty. It could be among staff, where a boss just discredits your work or discredits your work in front of other people. Or it could even be amongst children, amongst students, where a student feels left out. So with that in mind, let's think about how bullying differs from other forms of aggression, because after all, we are talking about aggression here. Harassment deals with a behavior that's intended to disturb or upset. It's found threatening, something found threatening, a behavior that's insulting, that causes discomfort. I mean, there are many forms of harassment. In bullying it encompasses harassment, but it's a behavior that's done repetitively. It's a way to gain power over another person. So in other words, you could be speaking to someone, having a conversation with someone, and then the person will say, well, I'm going to get all those people who I don't like. I mean, this is a power struggle. You can take a so-called regular conversation And you can hear, perhaps, if it leads to that, a need to have power, control, a struggle over people. And we are prone sometimes to saying we're unhappy with our lives, we don't like things, we wish things wouldn't go this way. But bullying comes in when you want to gain power over another person, or you want to destroy peer acceptance, friendships, or even in cyberbullying, which I'm not addressing directly, that's a whole other topic, where you use technology to harm others. So harassment is like a subset of bullying, and bullying is done more on a continuous basis. Now, if I may interject, there are other forms that we think about when we think about bullying, because after all, we have a target. There's the bully, the one who actually does the bullying, and there's the target. The target is the victim of bullying. There's verbal abuse, which is an abuse that involves language. It could be physical abuse. That's the act of bodily force to harm someone. So all of these behaviors run under bullying. But there's also other forms. There's mobbing. That's when an individual, that's the bullying of an individual by a group. When a group gangs up, and this is very common in the higher educational arena particularly, and in other areas where subordinates or superiors are forcing someone out of the workplace. Either there's rumors, there's intimidation, there's humiliation, isolation. The bully loves to have an audience, and the bully loves to work with others who support his or her concerns. That's part of the control and the power issue. And we need to be, we as working in the work environment, being part of social arenas, we need to be open and to understand that things like this can happen, that there is victimization that can happen, or there's rituals that can be done where people try to prove themselves that they are better than others, when it really is not part of the behavior that should be expressed in general.
Clara, I do need to go for a quick station break, but I will be right back in a couple of moments. And following on that vein, when I come back, I would like to ask about bullying being carried out on an individual or a group. Before I go to the break, Clara, I always invite my audience to reach out and contact the guests on the show. How might my audience contact you after the show today or at some point in the future?
I'll give you my email address and my office phone number. My email address is CWAJNGURT@QCC.CUNY.edu. That's C. Wajngurt at Queensborough Community College, QCC.CUNY, City University of New York, .edu, and my phone number is 718-281-5443.
And to my listening audience, of course, I always list the interviews on the Job Talk Radio Show website, and I will hot link Clara's contact information to her name on the website. We shall go for a quick station break. Welcome back, everybody. Of course, you are listening to the Job Talk Radio Show, and I am your host, Dr. Tina. Today, as we interview Clara Wajngurt on the phenomenon of bullying in higher education, I'm struggling with so many questions just to hone in on several here that will help illuminate and illustrate this topic and how Clara came to be a commentator on it. How is bullying carried out on an individual or on a group?
Well, the bully likes to work with an audience. The bully loves support. There's feelings of insecurity in the bully, and perhaps this is one way of exerting oneself. I mean, this is one way of looking at the bully. Bully thinks that he or she has leadership potential and likes to scapegoat others. And so the bullying itself can be carried out by an individual or a group of individuals. In the individual case, it would be a person who bullies consistently. In the individual case, in the group case, the group of individuals who bully are very difficult to distinguish from those that are non-bullying peers. And I can think of some recent examples, just for an example, in the higher education arena. Someone who's up for tenure. Tenure in the education field means we are measuring credentials via some rubric. Usually there's a rubric. Sometimes there isn't. And to see whether the person can continue working on the job. At CUNY, at City University of New York, this is now after 7 years. It used to be 5 years. And for the last couple of years, it's become 7 years. So after 7 years of working at the college, a person is up for tenure. And it basically means that the person's credentials, so to speak, will go before the department, a department committee. And then the credentials go to a higher, so to speak, college-wide committee. And one example of this type of bullying is where the chair and the department committee, this is a special committee that can hire, that can fire, that can determine the future impact for the department. And the chair and this so-called committee, it's called the Personnel and Budget Committee at City University of New York, decides that they don't want to hire this person, the person who's up for tenure. And actions are taken to avoid, to diminish, to exclude this person who's up for tenure. Actions are taken to make sure the person's not involved in activities of the department. And in my book, that's called bullying.
Okay.
Now, I'm sorry.
No, so this is happening to a person. There is the instigator and there is the target. And there's a third party in this relationship, the bystander, the observer. Yes. What are the feelings? What's happening to the observer when they see bullying in their departments in an academic situation, in an academic environment?
So that question itself has various levels. It depends on the role of the bystander in the incident that was observed. In other words, what is the relationship to the bully and or to the person who's not bullied? It could also involve what level has the bystander reached in his or her academic training. If the bystander has not been promoted, there may be a fear. And very well so. I can give you a personal example. In my first 10 years, where I was moving up the ladder, on the professorial rank. If I witnessed bullying, I didn't approach people, but I did speak to adults. I did speak to friends. You need an outlet. You need something to talk about, because the bystander also is prone to anxiety and depression and other forms of health concerns, as is the bully. The bystander is standing there and watching the incident. So there can also be, in the bystander, increased mental health problems, depression, anxiety. If you're working on a job, maybe there's truancy, turnover on the job. Oh, I observed some bullying today. My boss did so-and-so to X, and X, the boss, did something to Y, my friend. So maybe I don't want to be on the job anymore. So being that the bully likes an audience, if the bystander doesn't speak up, the bully may continue. If the bystander shows disapproval, the bully can be stopped. So the bystander has a very important role here. And it's important for the bystander, if the bystander observes bullying, it's important to say, let me tell a friend so I can get the support. Let me report the incident to a school official or to another adult where it can make an impact. It's important to think about strategies. When I observe bullying, think about strategies that can diffuse the situation. Think about how to express feelings, because the bystander, as is the bully, is also prone to the same health concerns.
Okay. With that insight then, 3 questions in tandem. The first one maybe is 2 parts. Why then, or rather, can you differentiate between bullying in academia that's professor upon professor or professor upon staff versus bullying between the academic body and the students, whether it's students bullying a professor or whether it's a professor bullying students? Are those all different types of bullying, or are there common themes among all of those relationships?
First, we have to understand what bullying is about. So let's get back to what it is about. And then let's analyze what you said. We need to recognize when bullying occurs. We need to recognize that it's a verbal or a physical, social, psychological, aggressive behavior. It's a situation where there's a balance of control. It's a situation where there's a superior versus perhaps someone underneath the superior on the level of the job. So you mentioned professor to professor. I assume, let's say, it's a full professor versus an assistant professor. Or, because we're not saying that bullying doesn't occur from full professor to full professor, but we're talking about on the average in most cases. It's a control situation, or it's a balance of control situation, or it's a situation where one has achieved more than another. Or you mentioned just now professor versus staff. Okay, it depends on how that situation is viewed. Who is viewed as the one more in power? Or professors versus students, that's a clear-cut situation where the professor is in charge of the class. And so it's important for the professor to show civility towards his students or her students, show respect and tolerance towards his or her students. But sometimes we do have bullying situations in that regard. So each of those situations that you mentioned are characteristic of the bullying definition, But we need to take each situation that comes up and analyze what is going on, what happened, why did it happen, and what are the solutions. So the answer to your question is we need to take each bullying incident and analyze it for what it is.
Okay, thank you for that. Why is bullying then so prevalent in higher education?
Bullying is prevalent all over. It's a societal issue. And I think we need to find ways to combat bullying. You know, many years ago when I started out, we didn't really hear the word bullying. But as we become more open in society, we express ourselves more, we're able to face certain issues more and discuss them. I think, as I've also worked with the Healthy Workplace Bill in New York City, that's in the Albany, the Healthy Workplace Bill, it's been around, but it hasn't been acknowledged. And it's important to say or to understand that bullying is not only prevalent in higher education, and I'm only looking at bullying in higher education because that's my area. I live and I breathe higher education. But it also occurs with friends. It occurs with your spouse. It occurs with children. And it's a prevalent phenomenon. And we need to find ways in order to work with these situations.
And on that note then, how does one respond to bullying, Clara?
Well, the first thing is you just don't want to encourage the bully to act more in this frame. The idea is that either you want to try to diffuse the situation as much as you can. So when you see a person who is bullying, you listen, but don't encourage the bully to keep on bullying. After a while, the bully will stop. And so what you need to do is to listen, walk away, and report the bullying incident to the appropriate official.
Hold that thought there for a moment. I do need to take a quick station break here, and we shall be right back in one moment. Welcome back, everybody. You are listening to the Job Talk radio show, and I am your host, Dr. Tina. Today we're interviewing Clara Wajngurt on the subject of bullying in higher education, and Clara is an observer and commentator on the contemporary phenomenon that we now know to be bullying. And before the break, we were talking about how one would respond to a bully and that's from an individual perspective. From a community perspective, Clara, how can our communities play a significant role in identifying and controlling and stopping bullying in whatever environment we happen to be in?
I think the community plays a significant role in bullying. And as we just said, I believe, and certainly this is a discussion, it's open to discussion and to give and take. I believe that the community can help combat the role of bullying, which is prevalent in all of society. We can have anti-bullying events in the community. We can get more acquainted with our state laws about bullying. Certainly in New York, there's the Healthy Workplace Bill, which interestingly enough has not passed, and I imagine it hasn't passed because bullying is different to different. It means different things to different people, so it's very hard to define. And it's possible that bullying needs to be approached more on an individual level. But we can find out about state laws. We can have parents and school staff work on this issue. We can analyze how schools, before we get to the higher education arena, how do schools handle anti-bullying incidents? Are there lead staff members at the schools spearheading anti-bullying efforts? We can have, at the college level, we can have campus-wide training on bullying.
And so on that note, then, as parents are finishing up their senior year with their high school students, and they're preparing them, they're laying the groundwork for their child, their young adult, to leave home and go to college or go to university. What questions one should a parent be asking about the bullying incidents or bullying culture in a university or a college, and how should they be preparing their young adults for maneuvering in this space when they're away from home for the first time?
Okay, that's a very good question. It's been well known that there have been bullying incidents on the college campus. People are scapegoated. Students are scapegoated. There have been cases where students have been scapegoated on the campuses because they're different or they don't conform to rules. And in some cases, some of the students have committed suicide, unfortunately. And that's because we didn't know what to do. We as a community didn't know what to do when someone in our community was being bullied. And I think it's important for parents to look at the school's environment, to talk to the counselors, to understand whether there's avenues in the school, staff at the colleges who are monitoring the disciplinary processes, working with others to combat if there are incidents that occur, to analyze what happens when something of this nature occurs at the college. And if some schools do not have a process for looking at harassment, bullying, other types of behaviors, aggressive behaviors where there's victimization, maybe we can introduce it. I'm in the process right now of doing that at my own school.
Okay, we have just about run out of time, Clara. Your input and insight has been phenomenal today, and so I want to thank you very much for everything that you've shared with us. I do also want to remind my audience that you can reach out and find out more about Clara and her work and her insights, and you can contact her. We addressed her contact information during the radio show, but you can always go to the jobtalkradioshow.com website and click on her name, which will hotlink to her contact information. As always, then, to my listening audience, this is your host, Dr. Tina, and I am reminded that we don't always choose to do what we want to do in our work life or in our lives, but we always get to choose who we are. Clara is clearly on a mission to be an advocate for the awareness of this phenomena of bullying in academia. And the show today, of course, is targeted at listeners wanting more encouragement, respect, and inspiration in their work lives. And if you happen to be working in academia, be assured that there are people who are aware of improving your work-life conditions in your academic institution. It is time to bid adieu. So, Clara, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
It's absolutely my pleasure.